but I want to share a story with you. My friend Sebastian Gorka, Sebastian Gorka and I are great friends, and my best girl and I and Kate Gorka and Sebastian, we like going to dinner and hanging out, and they're great people and great Americans and all that stuff. But Sebastian and I are talking, and Sebastian has been his PhD, he's Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Kate Gorka is a PhD also. And, they do real stuff, national security and war and peace and things like that. And Sebastian has long taught courses on terrorism and lots of important national security things. Well, we were talking, Sebastian and I. A lot of people call him Seb. That's too short. I think he deserves Sebastian. That's more syllables, more gravitas. But here's the thing. Next week at the National Defense University in Washington, D.C., which is a big deal, Pentagon-run National Defense University, they're hosting a speaker session. And here's the title of the speaker, just because this is important. It actually is, it relates to what we're talking about. The Biden administration and the left taking over the United States government. They've radicalized the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party has seized power. All right. They've got at the National Defense University a radical left-wing speaker and author. And the session is titled, quote, Responding to China, colon, and I think we should respond to China. But here's the part past the colon. The case for global justice and democratic socialism. This is military officers in the United States military who are being subjected to this indoctrination by the radical left wing, Obama, Biden juggernaut, and the military now has been taken over in effect as well because, Biden and Obama and the left wing juggernaut. The speaker will be a professor named Thomas Piketty, P-I-K-E-T-T-Y. He comes from the Paris School of Economics. He's the author of a book called Time for Socialism. He's got another book called Kapital. Karl Marx wrote Das Kapital, and Thomas Piketty wrote Capital and Time for Socialism. So he's a radical extremist socialist from Paris who's been brought in by the Biden administration to indoctrinate U.S. military officers. I believe at the National Defense University you're going field grade. You're working your way up major, lieutenant colonel. Go to the National Defense University, the NDU. It's down on a peninsula along the Potomac River in Washington. And he will argue that democratic socialism should be America's response to China, to the rising tide of communist China. The session is presented by the Pentagon's Strategic Multi-Layer Assessment Program in collaboration with National Defense University's Eisenhower School for National Security and Resource Strategy. Dwight Eisenhower is on a rotisserie in his grave right now. And a description of the event is this. Western countries are still struggling to define their attitude toward the Beijing regime, Communist China. In this talk, Mr. Piketty will argue that the right answer lies in Western arrogance, Chinese propaganda, communist propaganda, and promoting, it's the West that is arrogant. This is what the communist Chinese will tell you. And now the Biden administration is indoctrinating American army officers with this, okay, and other military officers. So the Western arrogance and promoting a new, you got to hear this language, a new emancipatory and egalitarian horizon on a global scale, a new form of democratic and participatory ecological and post-colonial socialism. So this is a Chinese communist, Soviet communist propagandist being brought in by the Biden administration to indoctrinate U.S. military officers at our own National Defense University. And he says, if they, meaning the arrogant Western democracies, stick to their usual lecturing posture and a dated hyper-capitalist model, Western countries may find it extremely difficult to meet the Chinese challenge. So that's the description of the course. The guy's a communist. This administration is indoctrinating U.S. military officers with communist ideology, anti-Western. See, it's not even just the United States, it's Western. The arrogant Western countries and their hyper-capitalist model. Now, participatory, that Chinese communism is not participatory. Ecological, they're the biggest polluters on the planet. The Soviet Union was the biggest polluter on the planet when they were destroying lives and murdering tens of millions of people. And post-colonial socialism. Well, China right now is colonial, not post-colonial, not pre-colonial. They are colonial. They are operating on a colonial model. And this is what the Biden administration is doing with our military, because when you give the left authority, this is what they do. Responding to China, the case for global justice, radical left-wing buzzwords, and democratic socialism. They always put the word democratic in there. One man, one vote, one time. Professor Thomas Piketty, author of Capital and Time for Socialism. This is indoctrination in our military. This is an internal revolution against the United States of America being perpetrated by the left, and their sock puppet is Joe Biden, and he has no stinking clue what's going on in the world. Now, I needed to say that because it's very important. And Sebastian and I talking about this, and Sebastian leading the charge for me on this, because this is absolutely extraordinary, unacceptable. It is as anti-American, anti-capitalist, un-American, and at the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. Absolutely staggering. Wow. This is, the various services have their war colleges, and then there is this. This is the crown jewel, the top of the pyramid, the National Defense University, and they're propagandizing our field-grade military officers with Chinese, anti-Western, anti-capitalist indoctrination. That is extraordinary. Extraordinary. Wow. Just amazing.